Washington is home to many mysteries of both supernatural and cryptid nature. The land itself is believed to be sacred by many people. When humans live on a land and spend time on it, a bond is formed. Generation after generation, this bond gets stronger, like the strands of a mystical rope. The stronger the emotions that are felt in the physical portion of a spirit's journey at a particular place, the stronger the bond will be after death. Emotions can leave either a positive or a negative energy that can linger on a location or object for centuries. In the spirit realm, time is irrelevant. This bond can still be felt by spirits when they've transitioned into death. It calls them back to this location. Ancestor spirits can become protective of these places, and they become sacred spots or objects to the spirits. A relative or loved one might feel a warm welcome when visiting. However, an unwanted guest could be in for a rather scary experience. Different types of guardians can be sent by the ancestor spirits to protect these places. These can take the appearance of different animals or even scary beasts. Washington is filled with local places that have been sacred to indigenous people for thousands of years. One of these places is the Elwha River, home to the Sklallam tribe. Sklallam means strong people in the indigenous language. They received this name when they showed a feat of strength at a potlatch. The tribe was said to have carried a massive cedar canoe out of the water on their shoulders. This canoe was said to have weighed at least a ton, if not a couple tons. It was made out of solid cedar. All the assembled tribes agreed that only a strong people could have accomplished that amazing feat. Tonight we're going to look at one of these sacred places and its history, compiled by me, Jacob Zappey. I've collected local lore, history, and my own first-hand encounters into an anthology series called Northwest Mythology. 2 volumes are currently available to purchase on my website. When you're there, make sure you take a look around as a place where you can stay up to date with what I have coming up, a map where you can report your own encounters in strange places, and I'm always have new things in the work, so make sure you go back there often to stay up to date with what I'm doing next. I call this tale Spirit Dogs. On many Native American reservations, buildings that used to be used for Shaker churches can be seen standing in various stages of disrepair. Many people, including tribal members, don't know the history behind these churches. In the late 1800s, Native culture was under attack, and their spiritual beliefs were outlawed to be practiced under penalty of fines or even imprisonment. As a result, Natives started practicing a new religion they called the Shaker religion. This combines aspects of their indigenous beliefs and different ceremonies from Catholic and Protestant teachings. It got its name from the practitioners who would dance around in a shaking manner while singing to go into a trance-like state. They were said to be able to commune with dead ancestors, angels, even God. Similar to shamanistic practices, they were even said to be able to heal the sick. And it's not the same as the Quaker Shakers. That's a different religion. A lot of these churches have fallen into disrepair and even been abandoned as the congregation moved on. Many of the churches were built on previous ancient holy sites for the tribes. And this was a common tactic to get Native people to convert to European religion. As a result, many people that live on the reservations avoid the abandoned churches out of respect for the ancestor spirits that might be lingering around. People living around these areas, they swear to see shadow beings and hear drumming and chanting coming from these church sites in the middle of the night. However, most churches are long since abandoned and people haven't been in them in decades. When that drumming's heard, there's no cars around, no lights on, nothing. So I had a childhood friend who lived next to one of these churches on the Lower Elwha Reservation. The church hadn't been used since about the 50s or maybe the 60s, and this was in the late 90s. So for 30, 40 years, that church had been left to get into a dilapidated condition. During sleepovers, my friend would tell me stories about hearing drumming and chanting coming from the building. He also told me a story that the church believed in spirit dogs that would carry people's souls to hell to protect the church from unwelcome guests or evil spirits. And I never really believed him. I just thought he was telling me ghost stories to frighten me on our sleepovers. So one night I was sleeping over, and some local girls that lived on the reservation farther down, they invited us over to hang out. So we were both excited until we realized that my friend's mom wasn't around to give us a ride. So we'd have to walk, and the trail ran right by the old church. So then my friend, he just refused to go. He would not go with me. He's like, dude, I am not going. So I said, dude, you're crazy, man. I'm going to go by myself. I'm going to meet up with these girls, and then we'll come back to your house and get you. So I zipped on my coat, put on my shoes. I borrowed a flashlight. I don't know if they have streetlights now, but at that time there was no streetlights on that reservation. And it was pitch black outside. It's probably 10, 11-ish at night, maybe even midnight. So I turned on the flashlight and I started my walk. It's about 2 miles. As I got closer to the church, I swear I could hear faint drumming, and it was just really faint, drifting on the breeze. And as I got closer, I started to hear faint chanting, like really quiet. Couldn't really make out where it was coming from or what direction it was. I thought maybe someone was inside the church practicing. I wasn't too familiar with Shaker religion at the time, but there's no lights on, no cars were in the parking lot, and it was really creepy, just a boarded up window, old church. But I was going to go meet up with girls, and a little creepy experience wasn't going to stop me. So I reached the girls' house, and we hung out for about an hour. And then I told them about the noises from the church, and I encouraged them to walk with me to meet back up with our friend. So they thought the drumming and chanting were strange, but they did point out, after all, we were on a native reservation, and that was kind of a common thing, I guess. They suggested maybe it was carrying funny on the wind to get to me, and it wasn't really coming from the church. But as we got closer to the church, we began to hear it again, the drumming and the chanting, and the girls started to get freaked out and wanted to go back to their house. And it was, of course, approaching about 2 a.m. now, which is the witching hour. I had to get to my friend's house because that's where I was staying the night, so I didn't have a choice to turn back. So I said goodnight to the girls, and I continued to walk on alone. As I drew parallel to the church, the drumming and chanting stopped, and I was relieved. I had to cut through the parking lot to get to the trail in the woods that would lead me back to my friend's house. As I approached the woods, I shined the flashlight to find the trail head, and 6 sets of eyes were shining back, white glowing eyes just hidden by the tree. And I immediately started to get terrified. It was the middle of the night, and there was a bunch of them. I thought a pack of coyotes or wolves or worse, who knows, was lurking in those woods. So I turned around and I started to walk back quickly towards the girls' house I'd left behind about 10 minutes ago. And I immediately heard the animals just break from the bushes, just running right towards me. I could hear the gravel being kicked up as they rushed out of the tree line, and I swear they were on a murderous rampage to get me, and it just... And I was definitely just a heightened fear state, just my heart started beating. So at that point I was in full panic mode, and I just started running as fast as I could. My legs were like jelly. I could just hear the animals getting closer. I could hear them breathing each second, getting closer. They're about to outrun me and catch me. And they're just sounded like a pack of devils, just they escaped out of the pits of hell or something. And so in my mad flight, I must have tripped, either over my own feet or an unseen obstacle. And I'd always been clumsy. I was a teenager. I'd grown too fast. And my clumsiness always seems to strike at the worst times, and this was no exception. I thought I was a goner. Any chance of flight had left my mind, and I scrambled to find the flashlight on the ground, and I quickly shined it at whatever was approaching. My heart just sank as I saw what was chasing me. Looked like giant dogs with just glowing eyes, and they were hard to focus on. They were like blurry, like a video or something. Just big dogs running towards me. Felt like I was watching a movie, like it was being projected at me, 3D almost. But I had no glasses, there was no projector, but that's what it seemed like a projection at me, about the size of a Great Dane or a large Mastiff. And it was hard for me to comprehend what I was seeing. I saw at least 4 of the beasts that were about to close in on me, and prepared to try to put up the best fight I could, even though I was super scared, before being mauled. At the same time, I was crawling backwards as fast as I possibly could, while keeping the light shined on the dogs. The gravel from the parking lot was digging into my hands as the beast closed in. The last 20 feet, all I could do was try my best to shine the light on them as they got closer. And they became more and more spectral as they got nearer to me. And they seemed to be mixing with a fog that had started to seep up from the earth. And as they closed those last few feet, I began to lose them in this fog. But by the time I thought they should have reached me, nothing but a wall of fog hit me. It was just so dense and gray I couldn't really see anything. So as the fog rolled in, covering the whole area where the vicious dogs were just seconds about to getting me, I immediately started thinking, oh crap, I lost them in the fog. They're circling around to kill me and deliver a coup de grace at me, the final blow, just sneaking up behind me. But after several minutes of sitting there waiting, nothing happened. And the fog seemed to look less ominous, and I was just sitting there, covered in a lather of my own cold sweat. I was relieved, but also in shock, because the dogs had seemed quite real and corporal when I shined the light on them just a few seconds before. Or at least they seemed real enough to pose an imminent threat. I looked around and I saw that I was now a fair distance from the Shaker Church, just on the edge of where the gravel and the road met. So I dusted myself off, and then I took the much longer route to my friend's house. I didn't go through the woods. I walked on the road. It added quite a ways. So I never walked by that church again at night. I also consider myself lucky that I escaped those spirit dogs that night. I think if I had just gotten far enough out of that rift that the church was making to the spirit realm, a few fewer steps, a few feet less, and the dogs might have gotten me. They might have been tangible enough to drag me to my death or tear my soul from my body and drag it to suffer in some unknown hell. I often still wonder if someone was really chanting inside that church, or if it was just the memory that was imprinted on the area, like a long forgotten television someone left on by accident of the spirit realm. I haven't been back to the reservation in over 20 years. But one thing is for certain, I would never walk by that church or the grounds during the witching hour ever again. I still don't recommend it to that day. Hey, thanks for watching till the end, guys. Why are there so many strange, scary, and beautiful things about the Pacific Northwest? This question runs through my head often. Once I left the area for a few years, when I lived in Washington, I never really thought about the sheer amount of local lore and strange things associated with so many local areas. Every neighbor, every relative has at least a few stories. When I went to other states and even countries, I encountered some of these stories, but not nearly the quantity that I've experienced while living here in Washington. As far as I can figure, the local mix of Native Americans and the large population of Scandinavians in the region has made a unique environment for many stories to be made. Both cultures enjoy a good tale and look to unexplained natural phenomenon and unexplained things. They blend them together. Behind every craggy precipice is a lurking giant. In every fern-draped forest lies a fairy folk. In each dark forest stalks unknown creatures like Sasquatch. Each long-forgotten bridge is a perfect home for trolls. But why don't more places have so many stories like this? Could it be that the land of this area in Washington is indeed sacred? Or maybe it acts as a portal to other realms? I like to end stories with a wild speculation section. I heard recently that the Shaker Church had burned down on the Elwha. It was under mysterious circumstances about 10 years ago. I'd love to know the events that led to this. I heard it was a fireworks accident, but I'd be curious to know if the person was trying to shoot fireworks at approaching spirit dogs and accidentally hit the church and set it on fire. I've also recently heard that there are still practicing Shaker churches here in Washington on other reservations. Maybe for a future story, I can set up a visit to check out one of these churches and talk to them about their beliefs. I'm repeatedly amazed at how kind people are when I talk to them. Who knows, maybe I'll uncover even more strange spirit dog stories. Maybe that's a common occurrence around these churches. Finally, some hypothesis about what the spirit dogs were. I think there's two good possibilities. One, they were upset I was walking through sacred tribal ancestry lands and I wasn't a member of the tribe. They may have been trying to scare me from trespassing on sacred ground. Or the other idea I received was that they were actually trying to protect me from something else. Maybe they were protector spirits and an evil entity was lurking deeper in the woods and they kept me out of there that night. Shaker churches can be a positive, holy, spiritual place. In a time when the native culture was under attack, they allowed tribes a slight way to hold on to some of their ancient beliefs, their tribal traditions. Maybe the spirit dogs saved my life that night long ago. What do you think was the intent of the spirit dogs that night? Leave a comment below, letting the world know your theories. I'm not sure what their intentions were, but they certainly did not want me in that area and scared me more than I've ever been scared in my whole life, including to this day. Should I reach out to some native Shaker churches for an interview or even try to worship with them? If you enjoy what you heard, make sure you hit that thumbs up and subscribe. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. And while you're at it, make sure you turn on the notifications so you can stay up to date when new videos drop. I'm trying to upload new videos of the strange and supernatural weekly. I make content that can only be found here in my own words. If you want to support my writing, make sure you pick up a copy of one of my books. Visit my website, northwestmythology.com. It'll be linked in the description. I love weird, strange, scary, funny stories, and I look forward to sharing many more with you guys. I also often get asked, why don't I go back to the reservation and make contact with some of my old friends? I've even had a few old friends reach out. I've not been there in over 20 years, maybe closer to 30. While I'm sure many of my old friends still live down there, our life paths have taken different courses long ago. Reestablishing long dormant bonds can lead to painful memories. Who knows, maybe my path will cross with some of the strong people again one day. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video.